I know about a guy and a woman. It was out in the forest, and my friend John, he shot a girl.
That sounds like every bonfire in Southeast United States.
It does. Welcome.
This is Jen.
This is Becky.
This is Too Close to Home, and we're our part 2
of the White Trash Chronicles. We wrapped up the Nazi ones about horrible white people, and now we're talking about some more horrible white people.
What's the title of that source? Redneck Riviera?
That's right. Let me get my sources again. All the way down here, too. Casetext.com, Lawrence vs. State. Law Library FSU Digital Collection. P&J Story. Florida Supreme Court denies death row inmates gender dysmorphia and competency appeal.
Boy, I can't wait.
Flesh Collectors, Cannibalism and the Further Depravity on the Redneck Riviera.
God, I love that title. Fucking love that.
I know. I knew you would. I was like, Jen's going to love this. Absolutely love it. So today we're going to get into part 2. We're going to pick right back up, and it's just going to get even better, guys. If you thought it was not white trashy enough for you, just wait. I got more.
She got you. Don't you worry.
So it didn't take long before Rodgers' name was brought up to Detective Hand in the killing of Jennifer. He was already investigating the death of Justin. Now, of course, Justin's body had not been found at this point, but Detective Hand was already starting to treat it like a homicide. Now Rodgers' name was brought up in 2 murders. Rodgers was the last known person to be seen with Jennifer. Detective Hand went to see Lawrence and asked if he knew where Rodgers was. He stated he did not. He asked him if he knew anything about the missing girl, Jennifer. He stated nope, he sure did not.
I feel like when they're asking you things like that, a lot of times they already know the answers to this.
They do.
You know?
They do.
So the fact that you're sitting there, it's like when her mother called him and you're like, I don't know who you are. Bitch, I met you last night.
Exactly. So Detective Hand was like, why don't you ride with me to go see Elijah?
Always these people trying to catch ride. That's how you know it's a small town.
Exactly. Well, this is Detective Hand taking Lawrence to go see Elijah. He said once they turned down Elijah Street, Lawrence started getting very nervous. Hand said he wasn't quite ready to push Lawrence because he believed Lawrence was the weak link, but he felt like he had to tread carefully to get all the information. And once he started getting real nervous, he thought, well, he might get too nervous.
I don't want to blow this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's like, you know what? Let's turn around.
I see you. You look a little uncomfortable.
We ain't got to do this. So they turned around and they went back to Lawrence's house. Once they got there, Detective Hand asked him, hey, by the way, do you own a Polaroid camera? He was like, nope, sure don't. And so he asked him for permission to search his home and cars. Lawrence agreed. But again, remember.
See, this is how I couldn't be a criminal because I just can't get questioned by the police. I'd probably end up being for false confession because I'd be like, knowing I don't have a Polaroid, but somehow in my brain I'll be like, well, what if there was one?
That's me. Like when a cop gets behind me, I'm like, do I have anything in the car I'm not supposed to?
Then I'm going to look like I'm lying, and I didn't know there was this Polaroid camera that just happened to be sitting in my back seat that is always empty.
Exactly. That would be me. I automatically feel like I'm riding dirty every time a cop gets behind me.
Never once been in jail, never been in a situation where I was about to be in jail, okay? That I'm aware of anyways.
Same. Hand then asked for permission to search his home and cars. Lawrence agreed, and Hand had him sign a consent form. He was like, I'm going to make sure anything I find in here is good to go. Detective Hand quickly found cut up pieces of Polaroid pictures in the garbage.
Boy, that could have went anywhere.
I know.
Cut up pieces of hold my breath. Pictures. Oh, thank God. Woo!
So he quickly did a little jigsaw game and reassembled them and seen they were images of a girl's body. The face looked like Jennifer's. Detective Hand was like, you know what? We're going to press the pause button. We're not going to look any further. We're going to go get a warrant because consent only goes so far.
We're covering all the bases because it's just got to be a slam dunk.
He said he wanted to make sure all the constitutional rights were in place, which also meant reading Lawrence his Miranda rights.
You know what? Well, I wish more cops had that thought instead of being like, let me go ahead and guns blazing. Let me think case minded because we don't want to have to do this twice. Do it right the first fucking time.
Exactly. And like we said, he's gotten burned, obviously.
Obviously.
After reading his rights, he asked him again if he owned a Polaroid or any Polaroid pictures. After again denying owning these items, he was placed under arrest. Rude.
I mean.
On the same day, Rodgers was driving his car down the road, heading out of town. Because he was like, you know what? I fucked around and I don't want to find out. But sadly, his car broke down shortly down the road.
Oh, no.
He walked to the nearest hotel and walked around there and some gas stations. He was looking for another car. He ended up sleeping in an abandoned car. He said that night he had the same nightmare he kept having, the image of Justin looking up at him right before he killed him. And I have to say, yay. I'm glad that you're having nightmares of the young boy that you killed for no fucking reason in a field.
The eyes. I hope he...
And that's what he said. He kept seeing his eyes.
Every time he closes his eyes, that he sees that boy's eyes.
He woke up the next morning and walked around the hotel. People were beginning to wake up and leave, and that's when a blonde maid walked by him. Thelma Barnes was beginning her day. She picked up her keys at the front desk, spoke to some coworkers for a few minutes, and headed to the laundry room to put the cleaning rags in the dryer. She then heard the door slam behind her. When she turned around, she was confronted by a man with a gun, stating he wasn't going to hurt her. It was Rodgers.
Ma'am, like, come on. What? You're not going to hurt me? Put the gun down then.
Exactly.
Gotta come in here. You could have just done it like the rest of the robbers. Put your hand in your pocket and pretend it. You ain't got to point it at me and be all aggressive.
That's not what she said.
It's not a quote.
He said, I wish y'all could have seen Jennifer put her hand in her pocket and mimic it as she was doing it. And I, for a second, guys, was terrified. I thought she really had a weapon.
You see this? Look at this. It could be an AK-47 or it could be my fingers.
Got me.
This is how I'm going to end up in jail one day.
Exactly.
I'm going to feel threatened and I'm going to have my hands. I'm going to get tackled and tased for my fingers.
For her finger guns.
Pew, 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 pew. These are registered weapons. I did have somebody tell me that at a jail one time.
You were like, yeah, they are.
He was coming
Sounds
in.
like he was hitting on you.
No. He was coming in and coming to visit somebody, and I don't remember why this came up, but I said something about crimes, and he goes, well, these are my hands, and he's pointing at his arms, and he's like, these are legally registered weapons, so I don't know if I'm allowed back in the jail. Sir, first of all, it was crackhead arms, so no muscular, no danger, okay?
Did you just, when inmates used to say dumb shit like that, I would look at them like I just looked at you, completely silent and just blinking my eyes. And they would get silent and we would both just be staring at each other, blinking their eyes. And then I'd be like, are we done now? Are we done? Okay, let's move on.
Do you feel better?
And they learned really quick that I was not the one.
You are a delight, first of all.
Thank you. They didn't all think that, but I digress.
Well, that's why they're in jail. They didn't have the right kind of faculties about it.
I was like, I'm not here to be your friend and laugh at your jokes. Take these fucking pills and keep it moving. I'm here to save your life. Thank me and go.
I'm just over here being saucy Jesus.
That's it.
Laying hands and moving the fuck on.
So back to our girl getting robbed.
Sorry.
So he told her, I just want your car. He told her, don't try anything or you're going to be my second victim of the day. He left her a car and took off on the interstate. His plan was to head to Lake County to his sister's house. At that same time, Lawrence was sitting in the Santa Rosa Sheriff's office being booked into jail. They also served a search warrant on Lawrence's home. There were weapons all over the house, from ninja stars to guns.
Don't be ninja nobody that don't need ninja. Do you remember that?
I don't. But
That
I don't
was,
watch movies.
No, that's a Jerry Springer reference.
Oh.
He had this guy, his little redneck from the trailer park. And he's like, you got your chooty chop, you got your karate chop, you got your ninja chop. Don't go ninjin. Nobody don't need ninjin.
That's right.
He's like, I'm walking through the trailer park. You think you gonna get me? No, says I. Ninja star.
Well, Let me tell you, he was ready because he had his ninja stars. He had guns. There were KKK books,
Of
bomb
course.
making materials, survivalist items, and blood splatter, just to name a few.
Oh, wow.
So the blood splatter, in case you were wondering, was from a few years prior. It was Lawrence's brother's blood splatter.
Is he dead?
He had died from an accidental gunshot.
Was it an accident?
Oh, it was. His brother was with a group of family members, and they were taking turns passing around a shotgun and banging the butt of the gun on the ground.
Are they fucking kidding?
Are you surprised?
No, I'm not. I
Okay.
shouldn't be. I shouldn't. Why am I acting so indignant about this? I don't know. Maybe because we would never.
Never.
First of all, I wouldn't even be like able to do that. Okay, I'm too clumsy.
Oh, you are. So they're
I didn't
taking
pinch a
turns,
finger.
They're passing around. They're slamming it down. Well, right before Lawrence's brother, the guy that slammed it before him, he slammed it and a bullet slid into the chamber. And so then they pass it to his brother, and his brother hits it, and the bullet's in the chamber, and it goes off and shoots him. Yep. So it was an accident.
That's crazy.
I know.
That's a hell of an accident.
Yeah. And a shotgun? It's game over.
No wonder about the blood splat. That was not. That's a blood shower.
Yes. Could you?
Ugh.
So now you have a visual of the nightmare of a home they're about to search and a small glimpse into the mind of the man that lived there. At one point, they were in a back bedroom full of junk and thick curtains. This was when Detective Hand pulled back the curtains and was met by a possum.
Oh, I was thinking it was going to be dead cats. I was like, dead cats, dead
He had a
rats.
live possum living in his house.
No!
That's almost
things are
worse.
so scary.
Yes.
The
Yes.
hissing they do. Mm-mm.
So you really have a full-on picture of where he lived.
It was habitable. It was hospitable to a possum.
It
If that
was.
gives you anything. So
I could have left
literally a
that part.
dumpster.
Yes. I could have left that part out about a possum, but I figured I really want to paint a picture for you guys.
And it did.
It
It
did.
really did.
Detective Hand made a list of things they collected during the search. A saw, a throwing knife, a hunting knife, pistols, a Winn-Dixie receipt showing purchase of Polaroid film,
Oh,
cut-up picture, tent, used latex gloves, 4 handwritten notes, Pepsi container of cut-up pictures of Jennifer. And there were more items, but again, just a few. Lawrence had numerous notebooks where he had all kinds of rambling. In one notebook, he talks about the perfect date. He talks about how he would make a nice dinner for the two. Then they would go to the bedroom and be intimate. And then he would slice her open and remove all of her insides. He would then engage with sexual activities again and again. And then he would fill her body with ice, sew it up. So basically, the perfect date.
you know, they say romance is dead.
They do, but it's not.
It can be, though, if it's his date. God.
They then collected a bag from the freezer with some kind of meat. They were unsure of what it was, but there were so many things they didn't know what they were. Like when they collected this odd tube-shaped object that was later identified as a penis pump.
Oh.
They said they seen it and they were like, what is this? And they were like, just bag it up and collect it. And then later they were like,
Bag
Oh.
it and tag it.
then later they found out it was a penis pump.
Makes me think of Austin Powers when he came out of the cryo freeze and he's getting all his property back and he's in front of like Elizabeth Hurley's character and they give him a penis pump and he's like, that's not mine.
The first thing I thought was, all y'all motherfuckers acting like you don't know what that is. Y'all knew what that was. Y'all knew what that was.
Y'all knew exactly. I know one of y'all have at least seen an Adam and Eve commercial, okay?
It probably said penis pump 2000 on the side. After recovering multiple notes written by Lawrence and Polaroid pictures depicting Robinson post-mortem, one page of the recovered notes states in part, get her very drunk, yell in her ears to check conscious, even slap hard, rape many, many, many times, slice and dice, dissect completely, bag up eatable meats, and bag remains and bury and burn them. Yeah, that's what I thought.
You know,
Yeah,
I know we're all animals, but it never still fails to surprise me what people will do.
me neither.
Like, I literally read an article this morning about a guy who was a bad alcoholic. I want to say it's in New York City. and he was known to ride the subways, and I guess he didn't realize how bad his cirrhosis liver was, and he died. Well, another homeless guy came on the subway and then raped his dead corpse.
That's awesome.
And I was like,
Thanks for sharing.
"What? Where's the thought process? I just don't there are people in this world that do things like that, and it's still like, I know it's there and I know it happens, but it still makes my brain break thinking like, how?
Yeah, I know.
I know everybody was somebody's baby, but that's a fucked up baby if you ask
Mm.
me."
Lawrence was later interviewed and shown one of his lists and asked what happened. Lawrence stated Rodgers brought Jennifer over after picking her up for their date. They all drove up to Blue Springs. They sat around and drank. Rodgers had sex with Jennifer, and then Jennifer was walking in front of Rodgers, and he shot Jennifer in the back of the head. He tells Detective Han they buried her where they shot her. On that fateful day of May 7th, the men took Jennifer out to the woods. They brought Everclear and Mountain Dew and made her
Fucking
drinks, and she took shots. Both men would grab the bottle and pretend to participate in drinking, but would never really drink out of the bottle. They would only consume a small amount as they wanted their minds to stay clear. After Jennifer became intoxicated, Lawrence walked off in the woods, and Rodgers said what he claimed to be have consensual sex with Jennifer. Shortly after, Lawrence returned. They all got in and began to leave. It was 2 a.m. at this time. Well, while driving back, Rodgers told Lawrence to pull over up the road. He told Jennifer he wanted to show her some pot plants he'd found. And like my Jennifer, she would get out and go look.
I would. I'm not gonna lie. That's exactly what I thought. I'd been like, damn it, they would have got me.
She followed him out to see them. He had Jennifer lead the way and pulled a gun. But again, he didn't have the courage to shoot her. They then walked back up the hill. He then pulled the gun out again, and just as she was reaching for the truck, he aimed again and he shot her in the back of the head. They then put her body in the back of the tailgate. They stripped her naked, and Lawrence had sex with her dead body. When he finished, Rodgers returned. Rodgers went and walked off while he did this. Rodgers then stated...
Let him have his alone time. What the fuck?
That's what I thought.
Oh, now you're being
modest.
What the fuck?
Rodgers then stated he knew where to bury the body. They drove down the road further. Lawrence then decided he wanted to have sex with the body again. Rodgers began to dig a hole, but could only get to about 6 or 8 inches before it was just too hard to dig. In the meantime, Lawrence was getting a scalpel out, plastic bags, and the Polaroid camera. Lawrence then proceeded to excise her calf muscle and put it in a Ziploc bag and place it in the cooler. Rodgers then began to dig again before quitting and going back to load the camera with film. He then began to take pictures of her. Then they cleaned the scene. When they went to leave, the truck battery had died because they had had the headlights on the whole time. They left the truck and walked up to a gas station where he called his plump and homely girlfriend.
Oh,
come and pick them
Lisa.
up.
Not Lisa, man.
Lisa then drove them to the house where they picked up Rodgers' car and went back to the truck to jump it off. And it's amazing they did not get caught in any of this.
Lisa suspect a damn thing?
She asked him, want to know where he was all night and why he went home and blah, blah, and was bitching at him about women's stuff, but never.
I bet her fucking blood ran cold after finding out about that.
I don't know. She doesn't sound like the classiest of ladies.
I know, but like to know that you were with, like, even if you were
You're
not the
thinking like
classiest,
you.
that's true. I'd freak the fuck out if I found out that is somebody I was with was doing that.
Yeah.
And then I know that I somehow survived even though my mouth kept running like it runs.
Because it sounded like she had a mouth like us.
Sure.
So when they got back out there, they jumped off the truck. Rodgers then took more Polaroid pictures of the body, including a picture of Lawrence's hand holding Robinson's foot up to show where they would remove the calf. Lawrence and Rodgers then buried Robinson at the site. They burned all of her clothes, and they went home.
Why burn her clothes?
That was just part of their plan, to get rid of the evidence.
You have a whole ass body.
Girl, make it make sense.
That's true. They're not in there because they're not criminals because they're smart.
Mm-mm. While Lawrence is at the police station being interviewed and confessing, Rodgers, who had a very different plan, was on the run. A bolo was placed for Rodgers. Police went to Rodgers' father's house, who was unaware that the bolo was placed. He said his son had been there and been at a bar that he owned across the street. He told them, I told him to leave because him and I don't get along. They gave the police some names of places he may be. They asked people at the bar if they had seen Rodgers, and someone said they had seen him in a blue car. This is still the car that he had stolen from the maid. Not long after, he was spotted in the car driving down the road. That caused a high-speed chase. They started chasing him. He was still trying to run. So they went about a mile up the road and rolled out them
Spike
spikes.
strips. Mm-hmm.
When the police approached, so he ran him over, he stopped. When they approached the vehicle, Rodgers stated, I know about a guy and a woman. It was out in the forest, and my friend John shot a girl. Now, I left out a whole bunch in the book about this because apparently he pulled a gun, and they were on a standoff for many hours, and they were yelling back and forth. And then he was like, I'm going to tell you about my friend shooting a girl, and he gave the gun over because he thought that would keep them from killing him.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's the perfect summation without having to go into the whole standoff, truthfully.
Yeah.
A standoff is really a stalemate.
Yeah. Y'all don't care about all the dumb shit he had to say to the police.
No.
He claimed he had no idea what was going to happen. He told a very similar version of the story that Lawrence told, but of course, Rodgers had nothing to do with any of it except helping bury the body.
Yeah.
He said he wanted to help put Lawrence in jail, and he would lead them to the bodies. He told them about Justin, which Lawrence had not done at this point. Rodgers was then taken into custody. Once he was back at jail, he told them about both murders, but again, his stories placed all the blame on Lawrence. Meanwhile, back at the jail, Detective Hand once again read Lawrence's rights and had him sign a waiver form. This form waives his right to a lawyer before questioning him. Detective Hand then began asking him questions about Jennifer. He asked him, how can you see her in the dark? He said, well, because it was a full moon. I remember I looked up at it. He then asked him what happened if anyone had cut her. Lawrence said, yeah, I cut her calf. He asked him how, and he stated with my scalpel. Detective Hand asked if he could show them where Jennifer's body was located, and he said he could. He then asked if they took him, if he could show them right now. And he said, yeah, proceed to tell him the exact location. Right before they left, he asked if they killed her, if he killed her, if Lawrence killed her, and he said no. Detective Hand knew he couldn't tell Jennifer's mom anything just yet, and processing a crime scene at night would be difficult. So they decided, all right, let's just wait until the morning.
Let her have one last good sleep.
Yeah. They waited until the next morning and headed out. Lawrence directed them to a small clearing. Detective Hand and Detective McCurdy immediately saw a small mound of freshly dug dirt, and then he showed them the pile where they burned the evidence. Lawrence then pointed out Rodgers' footprint, which was still present at the scene. Shortly later, the crime scene team arrived and began processing the scene. They found her body easily. Lawrence then took them to the spot where she was shot. Lawrence just began to speak freely about him and Rodgers and their bond at the mental hospital. He told him about their plans to rob, kill, and commit all kinds of crimes. He spoke freely about the details of removing clothes and mutilating the body. The detective recalled how Lawrence just told the story like it was a regular old story. He said it was like so sickening at points standing there listening to him because there was no remorse, there was no sadness, there was no nervousness. He was literally just telling it like we're talking this podcast right now. He asked Lawrence why he cut her calf off and what his plans were. He said he wanted to know if it tastes like deer meat. He said they were going to make steaks with it. He said they had removed the skin on her face just to see what a skull looked like. May 11th, Jennifer had been missing for 4 days, and her mother was not doing well. Justin's mother was doing slightly better and had left the house to eat something. While she was out, she came across Jennifer's missing person poster and noticed that the last people that were with Jennifer were the same last people that were with Justin. So she got the number off of there and called her. But Jennifer,
that would be a coincidence if they hadn't asked to be taken off of it. Doing too much. She called Jennifer's mother, but she wouldn't get on the phone because she had just heard the news that a girl's body had been found. Detective Janet Phillips shortly later arrived at their home to ask for a picture of Jennifer and any distinguishing marks on her body. She then told them that their daughter was dead. When Rodgers was interviewed, he was the one to show the location of Justin's body. He told the details on the way. He told the knives they used and used the same flat tone and lack of remorse that Lawrence used. When they arrived on the scene, they again
called the crime scene investigators and quickly recovered the body. Not long after pulling the body from the makeshift grave, the media arrived. Justin's mother drove to the scene. She needed to know and believe that her son had really been murdered and had really been found. Then the book went into a lot of details about the autopsies and stuff, but I feel like that was enough details for everybody.
Yeah.
I was good on them. I even zipped forward it and put
I
on
just
fast
thought about
forward in
like
the book.
how could you imagine police coming to you and asking you not just for a picture, but any distinguishing marks?
Yeah. And the really sad part was it went into detail in the book, but I left it out. The one thing is they were like, she has a scar on her right calf from where a dog bit her. And they were like, we don't even think the police put that in the notes because that was the calf that they had cut off. Yeah. To make sticks out of.
Oh, man.
On March 24, 2000, Lawrence pled guilty to first-degree murder of Jennifer Robinson, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, giving alcoholic beverages to a person under 21, and abuse of a human corpse. At Lawrence's penalty phase before a jury, the state introduced evidence of Lawrence's prior violent crimes and argued that the murder was committed in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner. The state also introduced Lawrence's tape-recorded confession. Lawrence's defense called witnesses who testified about Lawrence's disturbed childhood and his mental capacity. The jury recommended death by a vote of 11-1. Lawrence entered a plea of nolo contendo to an earlier crime of principal to first
Nolo
degree.
contendere.
Oh, thank you.
I only know that because I worked at a courthouse.
Thank you. Okay.
Do you know what it means?
The more you know.
The more you know.
No, but you're about to tell me.
Nolo contendere means you're going to accept the charges, but you're not saying you're guilty.
That's what I thought. So he pled that to an earlier crime of principal to first-degree attempted murder. The court adjudicated Lawrence guilty in State v. Lawrence, case number 98-321. On March 29, 1998, 11 days before the murder of Justin Livingston, the elderly victim in this case, Leighton Smitherton, was shot in the back while quietly sitting in his living room chair watching the evening movie with his wife and adult daughter. Mr. Smitherson did not know either the defendant or any grudge or dispute they might have had with him. The bullet casing found outside the Smitherson residence was fired from the defendant's Lorcan .380 handgun later used to kill Jennifer Robinson. The defendant admitted to law enforcement that both Jeremiah Rodgers and he had been driving around the evening looking to get into trouble, preferably to find someone to shoot and kill. Lawrence drove his truck by the Smitherton home. They had found their target. Lawrence pulled the truck off to a secluded side of the Smitherton property. According to Lawrence, Rodgers exited the truck and shot Mr. Smitherton through a window. Rodgers returned to the truck and Lawrence drove away.
Just so random.
Yeah. They found out about this murder whenever they had the bullet casings from Jennifer's murder. Didn't even know they were tied to that one in any way. They literally were driving around. This man is sitting in his living room, probably with the curtains open. Mom, that's why you keep your blinds closed. And they just shot him sitting in his chair watching a movie with his wife and daughter. Sad.
Very sad. Very sad.
Lawrence's defense called 14 witnesses, including 3 experts who testified extensively regarding Lawrence's background. Witnesses testified that Lawrence was slow and withdrawn, and that his father's conviction and subsequent, look at that.
You got it.
I got it. Imprisonment for the sexual battery of Lawrence's 12-and-a-half-year-old sister furthered Lawrence's withdrawal. So they went into a long, I think it was a whole chapter about his dad and how his dad is on death row and all these crimes his dad did. But I was like, I believe part of that molds you, but it doesn't excuse what you did.
No.
And I wasn't going to go into all of that.
I mean, look at BTK's daughters. They say, like, you know, their dad was the best dad in the world, but he was a piece of shit. You know what I mean? And they could have chosen to be a serial killer like their dad, but they did not.
Not yet.
Not yet.
TBD.
You know what? There's always tomorrow.
There's always tomorrow. You don't want to be eating those words later.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
TBD. Testimony further revealed that Lawrence attempted suicide while in prison for a property offense and thereafter committed to the state mental health hospital in Chattahoochee until his sentence was served. The experts testified that Lawrence had organic brain damage and schizophrenia. 2 of the 3 experts also testified that both statutory mental mitigators applied and that Lawrence could be considered a follower.
What was that? Brain damage?
Organic.
What's that mean? If you know. I don't know if you know. I don't know.
You
I've
know,
never
it's
heard of
funny
that.
because I was like, Jennifer might ask you what this is. And I was like, nah, she won't.
I was like, I just done organic. Like, do I have organic brain damage? Sorry.
believe-
It's the first thing I think. Like, oh my God, maybe that explains me.
Maybe this could be a fun fact.
Jimmy's Fun Facts. Organic brain damage refers to any syndrome or disorder of mental function whose cause is alleged to be known as physiological rather than purely of the mind. This can be caused by ailments such as traumatic brain injury, stroke, infections like meningitis, drug and alcohol abuse, and neurodegenerative diseases.
The defense was trying to say Lawrence is a follower. He just did this stuff because Rodgers did. And the state was like, hold on. Hold my beer. They said they introduced the scrapbook, the books found in Lawrence's trailer and truck, the scrapbook that included, his citizenship to the KKK, the human anatomy machine, the serial killers, the ultimate sniper. He had silencers, sniper's assassin, an overview of whispering death. Lawrence testified and he did make an apology to the Robinsons family. They showed that Lawrence and Rodgers essentially followed their plan. First, they got Jennifer drunk. She was intoxicated when they had sex with her prior to the shooting. Second,
So not consensual. Thank you.
Thank you. Second, they both had sexual intercourse with her prior to the death. Third, Lawrence removed her calf muscle. He even held up the dissected leg for the co-defendant to take pictures. A search revealed that muscle in a plastic bag in his freezer. The medical examiner testified the shape and area of the cuts on the muscle were consistent with having been removed from the victim's leg. Fourth, Jennifer's body was found in a shallow grave. They stated the actions of Lawrence, viewed in conjunction with the list of items needed to carry out the murder/mutilation and the description of the methodology to be used, demonstrated that he was an active participant in the murder plot and not a passive follower or observer. Furthermore, the remarkable similarity between several of Lawrence's actions and the details of his notes discredit his attempts to minimize his involvement in the murder. The state felt they established beyond every reasonable doubt that Lawrence, along with the co-defendant, had planned this senseless and gruesome murder over a considerable time and later executed the murder according to their plan. They jointly planned the murder in detail, selected an unsuspecting victim, and carried out their plan to get her drunk, have sex, kill her, dissect her, and take some of the meat home and bury the body.
Fucking insane. Match made in hell.
Oof. Although Lawrence may not have been the actual shooter, this aggravator still applies because the evidence conclusively demonstrates that the crime was a joint operation that was planned and executed. The trial court found that the greater weight of the evidence did not establish that Lawrence acted under extreme duress or under the substantial domination of another person. Lawrence's defense presented
Trying
the
to use the
testimony.
Gypsy Rose defense. I see what he doing.
I see what you're doing. I see you.
Not today.
Not today. Lawrence's defense presented the testimony of 3 experts: Dr. Frank Wood, a neuropsychologist, Dr. Barry Crown, a licensed psychologist, and Dr. Robert Naper, a licensed psychologist. Their expert opinions, along with other evidence in the record, demonstrated that Lawrence did have organic brain damage and a substantial history of mental health problems. He did suffer from mental or emotional disturbance and was under the influence of disturbance at the time of this crime. This mental or emotional disturbance influenced Lawrence or his behavior during the criminal episode. However, the entirety of the evidence diminishes the substantiality of the influence. So basically, they went on, had a whole bunch of people testify and said, yeah, he got some problems, but he knew what the fuck he was doing.
Yes. And that's the big difference between knowing is if you know that you're doing something wrong.
Exactly.
You could be slower or have mental disabilities, but if you know you're doing wrong,
you know you're doing wrong. When the entire evidence was presented, the court's opinion was that Lawrence's capacity to appreciate the criminality of his conduct or his ability to conform his conduct to the requirements of the law was impaired but seriously questions if the impairment was relatively substantial. Lawrence obviously had both cognitive and volatile deficiencies. He was mentally and emotionally disturbed. Nonetheless, he clearly has the ability to appreciate the criminality of his conduct, and when he decides to do so, he conforms the conduct to the requirements of the law. In sum, Lawrence's criminality appears to be a product of his intrinsic or moral makeup than the result of an overriding mental or emotional impairment. So basically, yeah, brah, you got some problems, but you know what you're doing. You choose right or wrong, and you choose to follow the law when you want. So stop playing with us.
Yes.
What I always find the most awful part of committing a crime is when the criminal wants to play the role of poor old me.
Mm-hmm.
During the sentencing process, Lawrence claims that the trial court erred by failing to appoint mental health experts and order an evidentiary competency hearing during the trial. While a state witness was explaining photographs depicting the discovery of Robinson's body, Lawrence's attorney informed the trial court that Lawrence was having hallucinations and flashbacks. After a break, Lawrence's counsel indicated that Lawrence was prepared to proceed, and the penalty phase resumed. But then again, he started having flashbacks again. The trial court took a break, engaged in a meeting with Lawrence, and allowed Lawrence to leave the courtroom while his recording statements were played. No competency hearing was requested. So he's trying to say, since all the pictures of what he did brought back hallucinations, they should have done something for him.
Okay.
Prior to trial, Lawrence's counsel made several motions to appoint experts to evaluate Lawrence for competency to stand trial. The trial court granted the motions. The experts did not, however, evaluate Lawrence because Lawrence decided to offer the guilty plea. Prior to the plea meeting, the trial court asked Lawrence's counsel, "Are you satisfied that given Lawrence's current mental situation and any psychological issues there may be, that he understands the very serious nature and consequences of his decision to plead guilty?" Lawrence's counsel answered, "Yes, Judge. We addressed that in our private consultation with him on the video, and I inquired of him if he was having any hallucinations, either auditory or visual, and having anything to do with the decision to enter a plea of guilty, and he did not, and he is not on any medication." The defense tried many ploys that I decided to cut out about why he shouldn't have been given the death sentence, but in the end, the court said, "Accordingly, we affirm Lawrence's sentence of death."
I mean, his diminished capacity didn't stop him from sentencing her to death.
And that was my thought through the whole time. At no point did y'all stop and think about her feelings and how she was feeling, if she was having hallucinations or delusions or fear or anything else. Y'all didn't let her walk away from the scene.
No,
But let's
instead
let you.
all the different thoughts and plans that they did, all the different actions that they took, in this shows that it's not, you weren't hallucinating. Okay, listen, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a doctor, so I can't say for sure. But I have a pretty good feeling.
I feel like you're feeling. I haven't known you to be wrong.
Thank you. I've
haven't.
never known you to be wrong.
Thank you. Now with Rodgers. He pled guilty, but when he went to the sentencing hearing trial, his defense presented Mr. Rodgers' defense to the death penalty was that he did not kill the victim. He did not know she was going to be killed. And when she was killed by Mr. Lawrence, the appellant was stunned and sickened. Rodgers claimed that Lawrence, not Rodgers, was well-versed in killing.
Not only did he kill, but he's besmirching the Mr. Rodgers.
The Mr. Rodgers.
Okay.
Keep in mind, Rodgers is the one that I left out some of the details of it. He cut all around her face and peeled it off of her to look at her skull. But he was just, it was Lawrence. He was scared.
Yes.
So scared.
Because you know me, I just accidentally peel someone's face off.
Yeah. They presented evidence from his childhood stating that Jeremiah Rodgers was diagnosed as psychologically damaged by the age of 5. And by the time he was 21, he had been treated by more than 100 doctors. His treatment ranged from psychotropic, antipsychotic medications to rubber rooms and 4-point restraints. As he was diagnosed by state doctors time and again with illnesses that manifested in psychotic symptoms, losing touch with reality. For example, Jeremiah would mistreat himself unspeakably in the midst of delusions that his incestuous dead mother was again calling to him. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I've yet to reach for the box of tissues.
No, not one.
Do I think they both had mental illnesses? Yes, I do. Do I think we fail as a nation to treat mental health the way it needs to be? Yes, I do. But do I think those factors excuse your acts for killing someone? No, I don't.
They definitely don't.
Now, I went through pages and pages of Rodgers' appeals and testimonies and complete nonsense. But I'll sum it up for you because I got bored. Enough with Lawrence, and I don't know if you did. Rodgers initially pled guilty as a principal to first-degree murder, but then tried to withdraw his plea. He then, again, pled guilty. He waived his right to the guilt-phase jury trial and was sentenced to death on a vote of 9-3. So later on, he was resentenced years later. When he was resentenced, the Florida Supreme Court remanded the case back to local court on the ruling that several factors about Rodgers' abusive childhood that may have swayed a jury's death penalty decision were excluded from testimony. During that resentencing, Rodgers waived his right to a penalty phase jury and didn't allow his attorneys to present mitigating evidence other than his own testimony, and so the court again imposed a sentence of death. So here's where it's always really important for you to have an attorney and listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
So he tried to go back and fight his guilty sentence and continue to say he was an accessory after the fact, but the death sentence was upheld. Both he and Lawrence have continued to fight these and have time and time again been upheld all the way to the Supreme Court. So I don't know if you know or not, but new state laws in the state of Florida say in order to get a death sentence, it has to be a unanimous vote by the jury. Mm-hmm. So if you have an 11-1 or a 9-3,
right,
it can be commuted to a life sentence. So the problem is when Rodgers, well, the problem for Rodgers, not the problem. The problem for Rodgers is when he went back and got resentenced, he chose to have the judge make the sentence. The judge is not a jury. You don't have to have a unanimous vote. The judge is the unanimous vote. So he fucked
That's
himself
where you fuck
by
up
having the
picking
lawyers.
a bench trial instead of a jury trial.
Well, he did initially have a jury trial. But when his case got called back for resentencing, he waived the jury and had the judge make the decision.
That's what I say. Like, you fuck up when you pick a bench trial over a jury.
He went back to try to say, oh, wait, this new law applies to me. And they're like, but does it?
Does it, though?
Does it, though? So he tried to have that, and they were like, nah. You chose to have the judge, not the jury, during your resentencing. Therefore, you didn't have to have a unanimous vote. You got one. They also told him, he decided to tell them, too, he also wanted his gender dysmorphia. Gender dysphoria, I'm sorry. Not dysmorphia, dysphoria. So now he says he's really supposed to be a girl and that they didn't take this into account when he was in trial and they misdiagnosed him and that needs to be re-entered as new evidence.
So being transgender means you can murder? Is that what he's saying?
Basically, he's grasping at any straw that he can.
Like,
because
hold on, I'm a whole new individual.
I need a whole new trial.
Which one is this one?
Oh, he's never said, like, he just said
this is Rodgers.
This is Rodgers.
So it wasn't Rodgers. It's Patricia.
Yes. And I'm like, the audacity of you to now drag the LGBTQ
plus community.
Thank you.
There we go.
Into this.
The hell you will. Not tarnishing ours.
So he said it was a reasoning to undermine his former actions, but they did not warrant a successful appeal. Rodgers sent letters to the defense counsel stating that his gender identity disorder was the driving force behind his desire to kill. And he said he waived the right to a penalty phase jury while struggling with the effects of that untreated disorder.
Shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
Stop it. Like, come on.
State Attorney Bill Eddins said that the Supreme Court's ruling, every state court claim has now been ruled on and ruled against Rodgers, which means he should have no further matters in the local court. And for the love of God.
Like, please do us a solid. Keep his ass out of here. I'm tired of his trifling shit, okay?
For the love of all that is good, I hope this is the end. I hope both families can be done with the decades of pain and suffering they have caused. Because every time there's a new trial, every time that there's a new hearing, the family suffers again. They suffer with the worry and the concern they may get out. They may be free. They may harm again.
We're looking at, what, almost 30 years now? 30 years of, like, not having those people that you love.
And then having to go and sit in those trials again and again.
And look at the faces of the people that literally peeled my daughter's face.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that keeps coming up in my mind. That they not only did they kill my child, but they tore her apart.
And then they have the audacity to say, I have gender identity disorder.
Get the fuck out of here.
As of this recording, both men remain on death row. Jeremiah Rodgers is currently serving his sentence in Union CI, and Jonathan Lawrence is also in Union CI, which is where death row is in the state of Florida. I did look extensively and way far too long to try to find their execution dates, but I failed. All I know is that all the execution dates in the United States listed up to 2027 were on the death row website, and they were not on there, so they must be planning to get murdered after that. And that is the end of the Redneck White Trash Chronicles.
That is fucking crazy, man. That is the wildest fucking story. And the fact that you, like, what was it like hearing about all these different places and having been in these places and knowing what's taken place there?
Slightly terrifying.
It's kind of like, I like we were talking earlier, talking about the killing fields, you know, just being able to walk by where those bodies were found is weird. To have lived in that place and all that, that's a whole different.
And while it all happened,
yes,
I could have been in the store with them.
Fuck, for real, you probably had cross paths with one of these people at least once because it's such a small town.
They probably knew I was too much trouble.
What'd your mom say about it? Like, did
I
she
didn't
ever
talk to her about it.
Well, Tammy, I can't wait to hear about it.
I can't believe I wrapped the longer episode up in a shorter amount of time. Look at me.
Well, I mean, it's just like when we talk about Nazis. Sometimes it's hard to put in the little ha-has.
Yeah, once I got to her death in the court, you were pretty quiet. It's kind of hard to say anything when I'm telling you all that.
And you had to do that for 5 episodes when we were talking about Nazis.
Yeah,
I'm so
tough.
sorry.
Yeah.
I promise you the next couple episodes that I do will not be so heavy.
Becky's fun fact, when her and I were recording, at one point I had to tell her we had to stop, that I couldn't take it anymore. And she was like, kiki. And I was like, it's not a kiki. I'm dead ass serious. I need a break. It was tough.
It really was. And I did not realize how tough it was until it was over. So I can't imagine how you feel with this.
Yeah.
Are you glad it's done?
I am, but I found some other fun ones that I'm going to cover that are just as terrible. So
there's always that weird period, like you're done writing, but the fact that you still have to talk about it again, that's the good feeling. It's like being done.
I was looking up people's favorite serial killers, and I found some serial killers I'd never heard of. And Emma looks over at my phone and she was like, did you just Google favorite serial killers? I was like, I did, but it's for research. And then she's like, oh, look, there's so-and-so.
Jimmy was asking me about that the other day for our website. If you look, it shows like our favorite.
That's why I was looking.
And I was like, oh, God, I don't even know how do you pick that?
That's why I told Emma, I was like, I don't even know how to pick one.
I don't enjoy it, but I do. What I did was I picked out the person I know a lot about, which is about Gacy.
Yeah. I wanted to pick Israel Keys, and then I was like, that feels too dark. He sewed the girl's eyes open.
It's too dark. Oh my God, I love you so much. This is why you're my best friend.
Exactly.
Because only other people that I know would say something like that is myself.
Exactly.
Is it a mirror?
If you said that to anybody else, they'd probably get up and walk away.
They're like, stop.
Not me. I'll give you a hug.
It's like whenever I talk to my sisters and I'm on the phone and it just gets quiet on the other side. Oh, that's the point? Okay.
Okay, I reached it. Got it. Noted.
Well, I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Little hometown love special right there. Like, that's a little too close to home. Somebody said, well, speaking of, don't forget to find us on our socials. Check out our TikTok, our Facebook, or Instagram. We also like to figure out, like, if you guys want to put some requests out there. We do listen to that. We like to throw out some fun questions. Jimmy, you've done some wacky Wednesday things or whatever. Don't forget to find us on all the platforms and rate and subscribe because that really does help a whole lot. Check out our merch. Let us know your own Too Close to Home stories. Check out our website at tooclosetohomepodcast.com. And
if you're wondering what the face of us looks like, our pictures are on the website. So
take the cartoon. That's the best one. I like that
one.
One.
Yeah, my eyebrows look better in it.
I was like, okay, they didn't even look like it was a victim of the 90s.
I was like, the audacity of Jimmy to pick a picture of me without okaying it first.
That's how I was with the Easter pictures.
So then I was trying to find another picture, but I had other people in it, and Emma and I were trying to remove them. And let me just say, I was like, I'm just going to have to send it to Jimmy and tell him to remove this other person because I'm not doing it very well.
Exactly. Also, we can do it. I can do it. And until next time.
Stay safe.
Keep your head on a swivel.
And don't bring it too close to home that you tell about the murder in the city you grew up in and drove by the side every day.
Just know the devil is in the details.
That is right.
Bye. If you enjoyed this episode of Too Close to Home, don't forget to rate and subscribe to us on most platforms. Follow us on our social media at Too Close Home Pod on Facebook, at Too Close Podcast on Instagram, or if you have your own Too Close to Home experience, shoot us your story at tooclosetohome@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening.